Somya Kanti, come to this, the bigger macro thing, and none of you are politicians or spokesperson with a political mandate, but as economists, this constant questioning sometimes and these doubts being created, India data is fixed, it is not good enough, it is not captured well, methodology is poor. With yesterday's exercise and with what Ashima and all of you have said, have those doubts been put to rest completely, or is still some improvement required?
No, I think improvements are an ongoing process, but that does not mean that you are going to discredit the statistical system of a country which has been built up assiduously over the years. I remember when India was doing significantly GDP, the first narrative was that the nominal GDP is high, is very low, so therefore that is not good. Now the real GDP has gone up now, so basically there is always the narrative of a different and other thing. So in my sense, I think improvements are always important in a national statistical system. I think CPI has been done, the WPI has come out, and all this conclusively shows that the growth which is happening is actually more broad-based. Otherwise, you cannot have a system whereby you go through so many iterations that the real part of the economy is growing and the deflator is actually now less than 1%. So that exactly coincides with the inflation regime. So we have a low inflation regime, stable growth, the external sector is doing well, and possibly we are also saving and investing to some extent which was not we had believed in.
So, I don't know how many of you have a professional interest in economic data. I know the bankers certainly would have, because this data will tell them about future trends. But it is very clear, if you heard from the panel so far, inflation used to always be a concern, impacts consumer behavior and spending. Growth, and I would add, before I go to Madan, that does this really mean that the Goldilocks description of the Goldilocks phase description for the Indian economy, that gets further buttressed, Madan?
No, actually, Siddharth, this whole concept of Goldilocks, I think, which people have brought up, it's been heard in the last 1 year or so. I think it's primarily because the statistics have been good. Now, we all know that the low inflation was because of a high base effect. And we're not going to have inflation rates of 1%, 2% in the next year. We're going to go back towards the trend 4%. So I think Goldilocks sounded very nice and sounded very cool today to keep saying that, look, everything is looking so positive. But as I told you, I never really subscribed to this concept. But the fact, we were doing well in terms of growth. We're doing well in terms of inflation. Even if inflation comes around 3.5%, 4%, which I believe will happen in 26, 27, yes. I think that's the normal inflation and inflation which is required in an emerging market like us to provide the kind of incentive to producers to produce. Otherwise, if I have zero inflation, why should I be getting into manufacturing? Why should I be getting into services? So I think we're along a good path. I think that's what I would be referring to, rather than this kind of going back into these fairy tales and saying Goldilocks, and tomorrow you say, has inflation doubled because 2% has become 4%? Is it something horrendous? The answer is no.
Absolutely.
So, in fact, just as an extension, I would say that even if you're talking in terms of monetary policy targeting, nothing is really going to change. We're going to remain with the 4% targeting.